Heads up, we got a big change to the PACT Act where right now, if you were previously denied with certain conditions, you can actually go back and file again and get retroactive backdated pay in a lump sum. Let me take you through these changes and really more importantly, what it could mean for where the PACT Act is trending, as it looks like it could be pretty huge. I'm Jordan Anderson, VA Claims Academy. Let's get into these updates. And it's so gratifying when I see a veteran get a large lump sum payment that's a backdated check. You know, it's just massive. I mean, just last week we had a client who got a check for more than $50,000 tax-free. So that's how much this backdated pay could be worth. It's absolutely marvelous. So specifically, what is happening here with the PACT Act? So by the way, whenever you see the term TARA, it's short for Toxic Exposure Risk Activity, just for your information. So first, one of the removals here, breast cancer is now determined to have no association with herbicide exposure. So if your only TARA is related to herbicide exposure, the VA is now not warranting a medical examination for that breast cancer. So essentially, they're not really going to take that seriously in terms of the causation of the herbicide to the breast cancer. Now, moving on, they are also removing renal cancer, kidney and renal pelvis, from the same list of conditions, just like breast cancer, where again, TARA, the only TARA is related to herbicide exposure. They're also going to not warrant a medical examination. And there are a couple of updated locations and time periods as well. So definitely check this out, because as you can see on this infographic, there are locations added such as Thailand, beginning January 9th of 1962 and ending May 7th of 1975, which is now covered under the toxic exposure. So now service in Thailand between these two dates is now covered explicitly under the PACT Act. So make sure if you served in Thailand during those dates, go back and file your claim. And I'll leave a URL down below to this more specific changes, so take a look at that. But largely, if you've served in Thailand during those dates, for sure, go back and file a claim if you have developed some type of conditions from that toxic exposure. Now, what does this mean for the future? Because as you know, I've been sort of predicting and projecting, coming up with November election time, and especially the fact that the PACT Act was a big win, seen as a big win for veterans, there is a lot of activity with the PACT Act, and specifically updates and expanding the benefits. One thing that I've been saying is that look at jet fuel exposure as potentially being on the upcoming list of conditions and toxic exposures that is explicitly laid out. We touched on MUCME, right? Medically unexplained multi-symptom chronic medical illness, something like that off the top of my head. But that's sort of this catch-all condition where, you know, headaches, certain, you know, vertigos, certain conditions could be underneath this catch-all umbrella. But now look for those to be explicitly codified within this PACT Act. Look for jet fuels, look for other things coming up in the months, because it looks like they are really chugging these out. These updates are coming quicker and quicker for the PACT Act, and I would expect that to absolutely continue going into November. This is such a positive, because even if you were denied with your PACT Act claim in the past, or maybe you get denied right now, it looks like these changes are retroactive. So meaning when these, you know, augmentation, these amendments happen, oftentimes they go back to your initial denied claim. Hey, if you were denied for a certain cancer due to a toxic exposure, but in a year from now, in 2 years from now, they make that a presumptive condition, that means that, hey, when you apply for that and you win it, once it's presumptive, a lot of times they will backdate your pay. This is kind of what's happening. So that is to say that even if it's sort of a Hail Mary play, if you think that, you know what, I don't know if mine is actually connected under the PACT Act. I know that I was exposed to these jet fuels. I know that I had some toxic exposure, but it's not quite on this list. I would go ahead and file for it. I would get it on document, get it filed. That way you can lock your place in time, provided that in the future what we're seeing actually does play out, that this trend continues to where more and more conditions are expanded upon. you will be happy that you did. Additionally, if you have some toxic exposure that is sort of not being talked about enough, or if it's being overlooked, again, right now is the time to make your voice heard. So write your congressperson, let them know about it, because this is the time where the PACT Act is experiencing a lot of change, and you need to go ahead and voice, sound off what you've experienced so you can get that through. This has been a very interesting set of events here, so make sure to subscribe as I keep you updated further and further with these changes. And again, make sure you lock in, because it could affect you retroactively, which would be a great thing. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Be sure to like this video on your way out and share it with someone who needs it. Cheers.